Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hamptons International Film Festival. My name is Megan Costello. I'm on the programming team here at HIFF, and it is my pleasure to be here today with Mischa Richter, the director of I'm a Town. Mischa, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I've got to say, this was a lovely film to watch in quarantine. I've personally never been to Provincetown, but now having seen your film, I feel a deep emotional connection to this place and to the people who live here. I'm from a small waterfront community as well, so watching this brought up a lot of nostalgia for me, especially now in this period of isolation. And it's just remarkable that this is your first film, though you do have a long and storied career as a celebrated photographer and visual artist. And I understand that this project originated in that sphere. So I'd love to hear how this work then evolved into a film for you.
Well, yeah, I worked as an editorial photographer and commercial photographer for many years, and I decided that I wanted to stop doing that and make my own artwork. And I grew up in Provincetown, but I moved away from year-round living there when I was about 14. So I started to go back there, and I started to make personal work about the town. I have a very strong emotional attachment to the town, so I thought that was a good place to start with my own work. So yeah, I think that's when it started. As an artist, I was using still photography, so I started to go there and take a lot of pictures, and then I made a book about my sort of longing for this town that I remembered as a child. And from not being there, not living there for so long, the town was starting to feel like it wasn't my hometown anymore, because of just my individual absence from the place. And then also I noticed changes like we're seeing everywhere. And so I think as an artist, it had everything for me visually, and then this sort of nostalgia for the place, and then also this kind of journey of searching for something that I had created in my head, and also for things that I had personal experiences with that maybe weren't there anymore, or were maybe harder to see. So in my still work, I those were the subjects that I was kind of tackling as an artist. And then it got to a point where I thought, I want to make a film. I had never made a film, and I haven't gone to film school, but it just felt like a natural progression from the still work. And a lot of the characters that I had been photographing in the places, I don't know, I guess to me felt filmic and felt like there was more than just a still photograph. There were stories and ideas,
Right.
and and
Well,
also I felt like at the time I felt that the America was kind of going the wrong way, and I felt like this little community that in some way some people say was the birthplace of America today, as in the pilgrims signing a compact that's meant to be the route to the Constitution. So I felt like, wow, this little community is kind of was the spark of those ideas of equality and working together, and we've and the community has kind of upheld those ideas. So I thought that was an important message to maybe tackle and share
yeah,
with.
definitely. Your film is a real meditation on and celebration of the act of connecting with one another and with the land. And in many ways, kind of jumping off of what you were saying, it paints this picture of an almost ideal Americana, which in the current time we're living in feels almost like an unattainable fantasy. Um,
Yeah.
in one small town you have the immigrants, you have the Portuguese fishermen, the queer community, the artist colonies, the Jamaican community, and even tourists all coexisting peacefully with one another and with the environment. And why do you think that is? And do you think Provincetown can serve as an example to the rest of the country that it is possible to live this way?
Yeah, yeah, that was the big question. Why is this 3 mile long little sliver of land, which is basically a sandbar, a giant sandbar, why do these people coexist and can live
Mhm.
amongst each other? Um, and that was also part of the idea of making the film, was to kind of, for me to discover that and ask that question. And I don't know, I mean, one of my characters is not in the film, but he thought it was because of because of the whaling industry, partly because with whaling there was this, when the whales were all taken from the area, these whaling ships had to
Mhm.
go all around the world, and they picked up sailors. While doing that, they go for 3 years and then come back after 3 years with someone from, I don't know, the Philippines or Africa or whatever, and those people would be part of the community.
Right.
And also this idea that when you work on the sea, you kind of need each other, and you
Mhm.
might have an enemy that one day will need to save you and rescue you. So I think that's part of it. But I just don't know. It's funny. It's like it almost feels like people come over the town line and they just put their issues aside, and maybe because they're seeing other people doing that, so they just follow
Mhm.
suit. Um,
Yeah, and it's an
oh,
interesting idea you bring up of this like community born out of mutual survival and just, we have to get along if we're going to take care of each other kind of mentality,
yeah,
which,
and
yeah,
that's what the pilgrims were. I think a lot of people
yeah,
don't know that the pilgrims were two different, very different sects. There were people going for religious freedom, but then there are also people that were going for adventure and looking for resources, and that was what that compact was about. Was we're going to need each other to survive here. And I think a lot of the birth of America was that we're going to kind of
yeah.
need each other to understand the environment and get through and survive.
Hmm.
And I think our community has that in Provincetown. And
Yep. And
long may that.
you, oh, go on.
Yeah, just that. I hope we can sustain that, because my fear is that money gets in the way of all of that. And I see a lot of money coming in. And
Yep. Well,
I think,
that leads into my next question. Like, what do you see as the biggest threat to this lifestyle that the town has been able to uphold for through all of these different demographic changes it's endured over the years?
yeah, I think it's money. I think it's property value. I think it's very expensive now to be able to live there. And it was
Yep.
never that. And um, well, I shouldn't say it was never that, but
It's certainly
yeah,
getting
that's
worse.
so a young artist can't come there and rent a little cottage and try and create, be part of the art colony, because we're the oldest art colony in America. I think a lot of people don't know that as well. We have this
Yep.
history of being the first art colony in America. And so I would assume, and I know young artists that want to come there and be part of that. And it's pretty hard now, because it's expensive to
Yep.
live.
Um, and just to loop it back towards the filmmaking for a moment, I was utterly entranced by the imagery in this film. Your work is so beautifully impressionistic and almost has this painterly quality to it. It's very mesmerizing. And I would love to hear more about your collaboration with your cinematographer, Richard Stewart.
Yeah, well, when I was going to make this, had this idea to make the film, I looked for
Mhm.
someone, and one of my great friends is a younger brother, Richard Stewart, and I had
Okay.
seen something he made, a film called Seagull that he made, and he lives in Cornwall in a very small town by the sea, um, and he did a lot of nature filming, um, and we talked, and I showed him my book, and he really responded to my photography and felt like he understood what I was doing there. Um, and I felt like we could visually relate in that way. We're both interested in similar visual aspects, and yeah, so we met and felt like it could work. He lives in an art colony and by the sea, and cared about other similar things that I had concerns about. So yeah, I felt like I could trust him and he could trust me. Um, so yeah, we kind of we did a test. I raised a
Mhm.
little money, and we managed to get a 35 millimeter camera and borrowed not borrowed, but we got some short ends from,
Yeah.
I think it was from a Bond film actually,
Oh,
and we
really?
shot a few reels and then looked at what we had and talked more. And so yeah, I think that collaboration worked just because we had similar ideas and
Yeah.
aesthetic.
Well, the end result is just stunning, I have to say. And as are the members of this film, you've assembled quite the unique cast of characters here. Each of them are so vibrant and honest and textured. And had you been an outsider to this community, I'm not sure we would have been granted the same access to their interior lives and vulnerabilities. As a filmmaker, I'd love to hear how you approached both the curation of these participants and the telling of their stories.
Okay, yeah. Well, the curation was this film is very much my interpretation of Provincetown,
Mhm.
as an and what I tried to think about when I was choosing who would be in the film is as a I lived there from age 4 to 14, so most of my childhood year round, and then every summer all of my life I've been there at some point. So I tried to think of which characters could represent what sort of shaped my ideas as a person, but also how I perceived Provincetown and what I thought was special about it. So I think that really informed who I picked, because I thought there were these really important ideas, and aspects of the town that I wanted to say through people. So
Yeah.
yeah, really that really informed the curation. And then you're right, a lot. I mean, I'm a little worried because if I want to make another film somewhere else, I'm not going to have um, that kind of privilege or growing up around, because a lot of people in the film I've known since I was a little kid. So
Mm,
I think that really helped with trust and understanding. And
definitely.
they know the way I live there, so there's we can relate in that way.
Mhm.
But some of the people I didn't know, Mark and Ryan, the young gay couple, I didn't, I just recently met them, but that was something that it struck me when I was quite young, that wow, people are coming here to be what they can't be where they're from, and that I
Yep.
really wanted to show that and I felt they had just discovered Provincetown, and they were having this kind of honeymoon period with Provincetown and their love in Provincetown. Uh, so that was something I
Yeah.
really looked for, and I found them toward the end of the film. Uh, so yeah, it was really about just saying those key ideas that immigration is working here. you know, and freedom to be who you want. When I was very young, I remember being with a group of friends and teasing a tall ship. I don't know if you know what a tall ship is, but
Oh, I do.
yeah, so a tall ship, and we were teasing this individual, and then we ran off, and he said, "Hey, come back here!" He had a deep voice, and we went back, and there was this man dressed as a woman, and not a drag queen, a woman, you know, and he was
Hmm.
probably there with his wife or his daughter, and he said, "Hey, I'm like you, you know, and he came from the Pacific Northwest, and he was a lumberjack, but he would go to Provincetown in September and dress like a woman because he couldn't do that where he was from, and that really struck me when I was young. So I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to find characters that could could say, coming here, we can be who you want, and it's safe. And
Which is, it's a rare feat to find that here these days.
yeah,
And despite despite COVID interrupting your festival circuit, you were able to have a hometown screening at a drive-in earlier this summer. And I'd love to know what that experience was like for you and how this film was received by the community.
yeah, that was an incredible experience. I've worked on this film for 5 years. I really love this town, and really I really wanted to share the film with the town, and then we got into the festival, and then the festival was canceled, and uh, I was kind of heartbroken. And then the Provincetown Film Society just they rethought it and did this online, and then 4 films at the drive-in, and it was great. I mean, it was great to invite the people that were in it and the people that know my work, and yeah, it was incredible, and it was a beautiful night, and the sky was just beautiful behind the screen, and yeah, it was great. I mean, yeah, it was great. It was incredible.
Well, we're looking forward to presenting your film at our own drive-in
Yeah.
during the festival, and I'm hoping we have as good weather in that during that time. But before we wrap this up, I just want to know, do you plan to make more films? And please say yes, because I'd love to see them.
Yeah, I have a few ideas. Yes, I do plan to make more films. I
Okay.
thoroughly enjoyed it and really loved the process. It was very difficult, but I loved it. And yes, I do plan to make more films. Yeah.
Okay. I'm very happy to hear that. I look forward to seeing them.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
But yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, Mischa. Thank you to everyone at home or at our drive-in who are seeing this film with us here at the festival. And I wish you well and hope you have a lovely day.
Oh, thank you so much. You too. Good night, everyone.